HarperCollins presents Jingle Spells by Emily Grimoire, read by Rebecca LaChance. "Don't be cross, Uncle," said the nephew. "What else can I be," returned the uncle, "when I live in such a world of fools as this? Merry Christmas." Charles Dickens, A Christmas Carol. Chapter 1. Blue Christmas. The greased-up pompadours of the Elvis dancers glinted in the December sunshine. In Tokyo's Yoyogi Park, 7 men grooved and jived in a loose circle as an almost but not quite right cover of "Come On, Everybody" blared through a nearby speaker. Ostensibly, the men were dancing together, but in truth, each was lost in a rockabilly fantasia of his own. Hips swiveled and elbows pumped for an audience of lovesick girls who existed only in the dancers' minds. Occasionally, one of them would burst into the center of the circle for a bit of anachronistic breakdancing. Although no live teeny boppers were screaming for their Japanese Elvises, Elvi? A modest crowd had gathered to watch nonetheless. Delighted tourists snapped photos and videos to entertain the folks back home. Meanwhile, locals looked on with a sort of knowing amusement. The rock and roller Zoku, as the men were known, have been a constant presence in the park for decades. Meanwhile, Delilah Melrose stood apart from it all, frowning, miserable, lost in her own thoughts. Or rather, just one thought. Papa would have loved this. When the song ended, the dancers gathered in a clump near the speaker. They whispered to one another, clearly planning something. What could this be? Wondered the crowd. Perhaps some special event? Soon, the rock and roller Zoku traded their leather jackets for red coats lined with white fur. They draped strings of battery-powered twinkle lights around their necks. One brave soul even pinned a floppy Santa hat to the top of his pompadour. Oh, yes, thought the crowd, a lovely Christmas show. Oh, no, thought Delilah, a goddamn Christmas show. Delilah had deliberately, naively, chosen to visit East Asia in December, hoping to skip the holidays. She didn't realize that going to Tokyo to avoid Christmas is like going to Los Angeles to avoid smog. She'd traveled thousands of miles to avoid the holly jolly and found herself positively soaking in it. As the opening notes of Santa Claus is Back in Town echoed across the park, Delilah turned and fled towards Harajuku Station. Roughly wiping at her eyes with the back of her hand, she muttered, "Fucking Christmas." Delilah's misguided decision to visit Tokyo in December had been made in the worst possible way, in the middle of an argument. She was the eldest of 3 sisters. Scarlet was second, and Luna third. All 3 were witches, as was their mother, and as were all the women in their small New England town of Oak Haven. The Melrose family was something of a first among equals in the town. Their lineage dated all the way back to the town founders who'd fled Salem back in the 17th century. The girls' idyllic childhood had come to an abrupt and horrific end with the death of their father when Delilah was 19, Scarlet 18, and Luna 16. Each daughter had responded to the tragedy in her own way. Scarlet fled to the West Coast, swearing off magic and trying to blend in with the normies of San Francisco. Luna did the exact opposite. She focused obsessively on her magical studies, drifting from coven to coven like an excessively curious tumbleweed. And Delilah? Delilah was the eldest. Responsible. Reliable. She didn't wander and study and perfect her witchcraft like Luna, and she didn't run away and date boys and feign normality like Scarlet. No, Delilah stayed. She'd devoted the decade after Papa's death to managing the Melrose family business, Oak Haven's Stargazer Inn. She worked and behaved herself and stood glumly behind the reservation desk as her 20s passed her by. When Scarlet finally did
Sample complete. Ready to continue?